Any late round sleepers outside the top 200 you would like to highlight?
Did we do Musgrove already?
Nope, but he's on my list.
Mention him, but I don't think we gave analysis on him. No.
Oh gosh, yeah, there are a few. Okay, well, can I start? I'm going to start real quick with Tanner Bibee. I think is he just inside the top 100, 200?
I mentioned his team earlier, but yeah, he's at 178.
Yeah, just because we breezed past him, and I think there's plenty of bounce back potential here. You mentioned he had some success with the cutter late in the year. Specifically, he was throwing it like 2 miles per hour harder. It was just his last 3 starts, but they were like his best 3 starts of the season. And given that Tanner Bibee was so good his first 2 years, and it was kind of a head scratcher all year why he was underperforming, I think there's very little risk to taking him at his going rate. At worst, you're going to get a guy who is healthy for a long time and just gives you nice volume, and there's a good chance he bounces back with, I think, numbers that will be even better than Ryan Pepio's. Like, I think I prefer Tanner Bibee straight up to Ryan Pepio, who's going a lot earlier. So that's the first one I'm going to highlight. Yes, Joe Musgrove coming back from Tommy John surgery, and people just seem oblivious to that. I don't know. I think everyone needs a reminder about who Joe Musgrove is, because these numbers will shock you. So his final year, the one where he ended up needing the Tommy John surgery, obviously wasn't right.
Yeah, he was pitching through bone spurs, I think, for much of that season.
That was 2024, and the numbers were, they were solid enough. He was plenty usable, ERA high 3s, but he wasn't right. The 3 years prior to 24, 3 years, Joe Musgrove had a 3.05 ERA, 1.09 WHIP, 9.5 K per 9, and he went 180 plus innings in 2 of those 3 years. He was basically Max Fried. And look at where you're getting him now. No guarantees. He comes back from Tommy John surgery, the same guy. But it's a pretty common outcome for that procedure. I think at this point in the draft, well worth investing in. I'd take him like 100 picks ahead of where he's going. If it was entirely up to me and I was drafting for the entire universe, I would take him 100 picks higher than this. And then the last one I want to highlight here, I mean, I could highlight a bunch, I guess, is Shane Smith, who obviously was rookie last year. The overall numbers were okay, but he definitely upped his game in the second half after a brief hiatus right around the All-Star break, came back for 11 more starts, 3.17 ERA, 1.04 WHIP, 9.7 K per 9. His swinging strike rate in those 11 starts, it went from a Jose Soriano like 11.3% before them to a Freddie Peralta like 12.8% in those 11 starts. Continued to develop a kick change. That was part of it. Improved strike throwing. Just some of the adjustments you'd expect for a pitcher so young. But what really put him over the top, his curveball with that kick change and the fastball playing off each other, his curveball was, the whiff rate on it was over 50% for the final 2 months. It ended at 48% for the season, which itself is very good, but it was especially good in those final 2 months where Shane Smith was pretty close to dominant. So I like targeting him late in every draft.
The ADP on those two, Joe Musgrove, SP 71 at 235 overall, and Shane Smith, SP 93 at 303 overall. Chris, over to you for some late round starting pitcher sleepers.
I agree with Scott on Joe Musgrove. I think that's a great call. He's on my sleepers list. I have Parker Messick on my sleepers list. I am surprised that there isn't more excitement about him based on the minor league track record and what he did in the rotation late last season. I know I think a big part of it is he's not currently projected to be in the rotation by roster resource.
No, I mean, some on the Guardians beat have questioned it.
And he might not be. I think it's a competition. He's got to win a competition. I just think the guys ahead of him are so underwhelming.
They are.
That the only argument in favor of him not being in the rotation as like options. And look, it's the Guardians. Maybe they do that, but he's already made 7 starts at the major league level. And he thoroughly dominated while spending a full season at AAA, more or less, last year. So I think the skill set here is pretty strong. Probably not as much upside as the other second-year pitchers, but I don't think that justifies the gap between them, when I do think Parker Messick should spend much of the season in the rotation, even if he's not there right away. And then a similar case for Jonah Tong, who was arguably the best pitcher in the minors last season. Doesn't seem like he will be in the opening day rotation for the Mets, although I think there's a chance. He probably needs an injury to get that chance. But when him and Nolan McLean made their debuts, it was not at all clear that Nolan McLean was the better pitcher. In some cases, Jonah Tong was ranked higher. He certainly had the better season. Obviously, now that we've seen them both at the major league level and Nolan McLean looked really good and Jonah Tong looked a little lost, okay, you take Nolan McLean ahead of him. But if we end up in a couple of years with Jonah Tong the better pitcher than Nolan McLean, I don't really think anybody should be all that surprised. He's a super talented pitcher who has a very unique approach. He's working on, I think, a slider or a curveball this spring. So I'm excited to see what that looks like, because I think he probably needs a more reliable third pitch. But Jonah Tong is super interesting and extremely, extremely cheap. So I like him. I like Peyton Tolley if he ends up in the Red Sox rotation. There's a lot of guys like that. It's just,
I'm not even sure Connolly Early is going to wind up in the Red Sox rotation.
Are they in the rotation? Maybe not. Is Zebby Matthews in the rotation? Maybe not, but I like him.
I like him too.
Great
Zebby.
strikeout numbers, really good control. I think command and quality of contact have been the issue for Zebby Matthews, but strikeouts and walks are the more important part of the 3 phases that we always talk about between strikeouts, walks, and quality of contact, because it's the more predictable stuff. Quality of contact fluctuates from year to year wildly for most pitchers. So if that's the biggest flaw for Zebby Matthews and he just improves it in 2026, would not be surprised at all. And now it does look like he'll be in the rotation with the Pablo Lopez injury.
The ADP on all these names here that you mentioned: Parker Messick, SP 96 at 309, Jonah Tong, SP 110 at 330, and Zebby Matthews, SP 107 at.
I'm going to name one more.
I want to rattle off a few, but go ahead.
One more name. This time a year ago, there was a starting pitcher who was clearly ahead of every single rookie and second-year pitcher we've talked about over the course of the past 3 episodes, and his ADP is outside of the top 300. That is, of course, Andrew Painter, who had a miserable season in the minors coming back from Tommy John surgery, but early reports in spring training have been really promising.
Yeah.
There were some mechanical inconsistencies that he was dealing with while coming back from Tommy John surgery, but this was a guy who was supposed to make his MLB debut as a 19-year-old back in 2022, I think, is when Andrew Painter looked like he was going. Yeah, I think that was what it was. Yeah, it was, because he missed all 2023 and 2024. He doesn't turn 23 until a couple of days into April. Andrew Painter is still younger than basically every top pitching prospect. He still has great stuff. It's entirely possible that he turns it on, and we're talking about a top 20 starting pitcher this season. And he's all but guaranteed a rotation spot too.
Yeah. So they
Painter, by the way, SP 100 at 317 overall.
The word they've been emphasizing in Phillies camp is command. He has his command back, but to get into more into the nitty gritty of it, he lowered his arm slot unintentionally coming back from the injury. Like it's hard to get your mechanics exactly right after that kind of rehabilitation. So his arm slot was lower. It lost the shape on his fastball, kind of like we were seeing from Strider last year, and it affected his command as well. He wasn't throwing it from the right slot, but he seems to have gotten it back now, judging from the reports of Phillies camp. And credit to all the prospect evaluators out there, because as ugly as it looked at times for Painter last year, he didn't slip much in the prospect rankings, and I think that seems like a wise call now. So yeah, I'm getting on board with him as a sleeper as well. A few others I want to mention here quickly. Sean Manaea. I'm back on board the Sean Manaea bandwagon. course, he was one of the players I loved last year. Missed a lot of time with injury. He had 11.1 K per nine to 1.9 walks per nine. Is about as good of a strikeout to walk ratio as you'll see. And yet it was a 5.64 ERA. Come to find out, remember the key to his breakthrough, the reason I liked him so much going into last year is he adopted that low Chris Sale-like arm angle. He kind of went overboard with it last year. It got too low, and he worked this offseason to regain the slot. Again, still had a great strikeout to walk ratio, even with that problem. I think there's a good enough case for Chamonix as a sleeper, but now finding out he fixed his mechanics, I'm even more enthusiastic about him. Bailey Ober, I think he was another a guy who suffered from a mechanical glitch last year brought about by a hip injury early on in his case. And he's totally forgotten in drafts. I think he's worth targeting. Cody Ponce of the Blue Jays, I think, was the most interesting of the American pitchers coming back from leagues in East Asia. I think he pitched in Korea specifically. But he made some velocity gains, some arsenal changes there, was very dominant, and with the Blue Jays now, good run support, RP eligible. I think Cody Ponce is worth highlighting as a sleeper. Chris already mentioned Zebby Matthews. I was going to mention him too. The Braves duo of Reynaldo Lopez and Grant Holmes, I think, are so cheap that I'd be willing to get behind them as sleepers. Major durability concerns for both, but a month ago we were thinking they might not even be in the rotation, and now they very obviously are. Reynaldo Lopez, when he was last healthy, he had a sub-2 ERA. I don't think anyone thinks he's that good, but again, these are like end of your draft type of picks. And then Holmes has always had pretty impressive swing and miss stuff. So I think they're worth highlighting as sleepers.
I'll rattle off a few here as well. Chris, I agree with you on Parker Messick. I wrote him up in Sleepers 1.0. His teammate Joey Cantillo, another lefty with a disgusting changeup. It had a 49% whiff rate last year. Some questions about how much he has outside of that changeup, but he was really good. Final 5 starts, 155 ERA, 0.90 whip. Showed much improved control during that time. He made his spring debut this weekend. The changeup was up 3 miles per hour. His curveball was up 2.5 miles per hour compared to last year. So a name to watch there. Also competing for a spot in the Guardians rotation is Joey Cantillo. Robbie Snelling of the Marlins. Now they've, brought in some veterans, which I'm not so excited about, but I don't think it'll be long before we see Robbie Snelling. Big prospect pedigree. Yep. Came over from the Padres in the Tanner Scott deal a few years back. Had a rough 2024 in the minors. He bounced back in a big way last year. Has a 4-pitch mix, really good fastball and curve from the left-hand side. He gets ground balls. He limits hard contact. And he is a workhorse as a pitching prospect, which we almost never see. He went 6+ innings in 14 of 25 starts, which is, again, just very rare for a pitching prospect. So I do think we'll see his, Thomas White at some point as well, but I do think Robbie Snelling is the first one up there. Simeon Woods Richardson of the Twins. He finished last season very strong. Final 5 starts, 2.33 ERA, 0.81 whip, 12 K per 9 during that time. Started throwing his splitter more as the season went on, and it was a really good pitch for him. Had a 33% whiff rate on it. He made his spring debut this weekend. He threw that splitter 29% of the time. So I'd like to see the continued usage there for Simeon Woods Richardson. And last name here, Jacob Lopez, who's another one of these.
I was going to sneak in and say him if you didn't.
Yeah, he's another one of these kind of funky lefties, deception. He had some blow-up starts there towards the end, but 11 K per 9, 376 Sierra, 363 xERA. It's a deceptive fastball. He gets big whiffs on it. He has 2 secondary pitches with whiff rates over 31%. Don't love that he's a fly ball pitcher in Sacramento. Ended the season on the IL with a left elbow flexor strain, but I definitely think there is some strikeout upside here with Jacob Lopez.
Jacob Lopez is a testament to weirdness being a good quality for a pitcher. Now, because his raw stuff doesn't look great by any measure, but he gets strikeouts everywhere he goes. Now, I do think the league could catch up to that, and maybe that's what happened in the second half. He's being drafted so late that the reward seems worth the risk. We've seen it work for guys in the past, like just sort of that same weirdness over stuff profile. Rich Hill comes to mind, and Joe Ryan more recently. Like Jacob Lopez could be in that same vein.
All right, let's move into some late round breakouts if we have any left. Chris, let's go over to you.
Oh, I think I emptied the tank. Sorry.
That's all good. Chris, any names left here for breakouts, late round breakouts?
There are some names I could talk myself into. Chris Bubich, whether you call him a breakout or a sleeper, I like him. Since we talked about them on this podcast, I will say Sandy Alcantara and Bubba Chandler, although I don't know if that's actually in keeping with the spirit of the discussion. I think there's a decent chance for a Bryce Miller bounce back. I think there's a decent chance for a Zach Gallen bounce back. Logan Henderson, maybe more of a sleeper than a breakout, but we already saw it work at the major league level. And I don't really believe in it, but I want to put a Shane Baz note out there that maybe he can benefit from a change of scenery. We generally don't expect players to get better going away from Tampa Bay, but I don't know if that's necessarily the smartest way to approach it anyway. Every team and every player are different. Maybe the Rays approach just didn't work for Shane Baz, and just getting in a different organization can help. I think there's some potential for that.
All right, 3 more names for me that I just want to quickly mention. Braxton Ashcraft of the Pirates. He moved between the bullpen and the rotation with the Pirates last year, but in the 8 starts he made, 2.16 ERA, 1.14 WHIP, over a strikeout per inning. He's got a 4-pitch mix, 2 different types of fastballs, 2 different types of breaking balls. Both his slider and curve had whiff rates over 32%. Does a good job getting ground balls. His numbers in the minors weren't good last year, but they were really good in 2023 and 2024. And he's a spark for those who play in points leagues. Next up here, I have Chad Patrick of the Brewers. He actually pitched really well last year, 3.53 ERA. The whip was higher, 1.28, but it was over a strikeout per inning. And over his final 8 games, 5 of those were starts, he posted a 31% strikeout rate, 11.5 K per 9. He introduced a new slurve, and it was a really good pitch for him, had a 36% whiff rate there. And I think he's just in the Brewers rotation to start the season. So interested to see if he could build off of that. And one more name, Scott. We were talking about him beforehand.
Yeah.
Mike Burrows from the Astros. He was acquired this offseason from the Pirates. He was solid last year, 3.94 ERA, 1.24 whip, over a strikeout per inning. He has a really good changeup with a 43% whiff rate. He made his spring debut this weekend, and his slider was up over 3 miles per hour. It had 2 of his 7 swinging strikes in that outing. And I just trust the Astros to get the most out of their pitchers. So
they said when they acquired Michael Burrows, he's a guy they've had their eye on for a long time. Like, he was decent enough as a rookie with the Pirates last year, but they thought they could bring more out of him. His most thrown pitch in that first spring start was the 2-seamer, which he threw only 6% of the time last year. So that seems to be a big part of their plan for Michael Burrows. They think the addition of that 2-seamer, the emphasis of it, is going to help him against, I think it was against same-handed hitters. Chris, it's same-handed hitters that helps with, right?
Sorry, what was that?
2-seamer?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So they think that's going to help with that. And Michael Burrows, I'm liking him. I think I might add him to either my Breakouts 2.0 or Sleepers 2.0. I moved him up like 50 spots in my rankings. Yeah, I'm warming up to him.